What's up guys, Spencer Sakurai here, and in this video I want to talk about how to create a great image. As a cinematographer, I'm constantly thinking about imagery. I'm constantly watching movies, breaking down the shots, and trying to figure out what makes a good shot and a bad shot. In this video, I want to show you my method to making a great image. Now these tips are pointed at cinematographers and filmmakers, but obviously you could apply these to photography as well. Now of course, story and content are more important than your images, but moving forward in this video, we're going to be talking about the imagery as if the audience is already intrigued and interested in the content. So my method of creating a great image is actually mostly done in prep. I want to get building blocks together to create an image. I don't just want to show up on set, show up on a location, and try to polish something into something that's great. It is possible to do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. Why not have more control, show up on set with something that you have in mind, prep for it, plan for it, create the image in your head before you even get to the location. I'm guessing that some of the best shots in Hollywood were done this way and not the other way around. Now the first thing I want to talk about is location. Location, location, location. You've probably heard that 1,000 times. It doesn't just work for businesses, it obviously works for films and imagery as well. Now the first thing that I'm looking for in a location is depth. How much depth is in this location? Sometimes you are required to shoot in small locations and you have to work with what you have. But if I had to pick something for a project like a commercial or a film, I'm going to look for the biggest space possible, something to help separate the subject from the background and give me more control over the separation and room in the space. Just an overall deeper, bigger space is going to make your image look that way too. It's obviously going to give a lot more depth to the image, both figuratively and physically. I mean, you probably don't want to just put your subject in front of a bare wall and shoot there. That's not going to be very interesting to your audience. So if you can pull them away from the wall, add some separation between your subject and the wall, the more depth you're going to have. And the more you can do that, the better. A bigger location will give that to you. Another thing with location is obviously it can help dictate your lighting. There can be some nice window light coming in that can help motivate the light for the scene, or maybe there could be something bad in the shot. There could be like gross fluorescent lighting, maybe like mixed temperature fluorescent bulbs that you can't really control. Maybe the space is deep, but then you have those bulbs you have to deal with. This is all something you have to think about when creating an image. Are we able to turn off those lights and augment light ourselves, or do we have to work with what we have there? Ideally, we want to be able to control everything in the frame, so sometimes location can be against us. Then obviously a great location like the outdoors, like maybe by an ocean or the mountains, is going to give you a lot of depth right out of the gate because we're outside, and it's also going to add some color and some texture to the shot, which is also super important to make a great image. Which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is color and art direction. Art direction is one of the most overlooked things when it comes to creating a great image. But to me, it's one of the most important things. Remember, whatever you put in front of the camera is more important than the camera or lens that you're shooting on. Adding color and other items to the scene is going to go a long way in your frame. Now, this could be a subtle effect. It's something that you can maybe just put in the background. Or it can be something loud and it's up there with your subject and is really adding to the story and you want it to be there. Either way, we want to stay away from that boring white wall and add some interest to our frame. I think you'll be surprised how adding just something like a plant to the background or a simple like table lamp or just changing the color of your subject's wardrobe, how far that can go on making a great image. I'm always looking for something that can add more contrast to the scene, and sometimes art direction is the best way of doing that. Now, the obvious way of adding more contrast and more richness to a scene is also your lighting. Next to your art direction and whatever you're putting in front of the camera, lighting is the next most important thing to making a great image. Lighting is that icing on the cake. You bring in some lights, you start shaping things in the room. You can start drawing interest to your subject or taking away light on things that you want that maybe are too distracting. Obviously, lighting will completely change your image no matter what you put in front of it. Maybe we walk into that location with the fluorescents overhead and they're kind of harsh and they're giving you raccoon eyes. We want to get rid of that. Let's use the light to paint the image and make that image more rich. We can darken spots or lighten spots. I like to use soft light on my subjects, getting rid of some of those shadows and making things much more flattering on the face. Now you can take this shot, for instance, I've got a nice soft key light coming in on my face, nice flattering light, but then I have the background a little bit darker. That way it doesn't distract from me, the subject. Now I do have a couple things in the background to add interest. That's my art direction. I've got a light over here, I've got a light over here, I've got the plant going on over here, and we even have the windows open just to add some more richness to the image. So we want to make sure that we can control the lighting and we can bring in and start to manipulate the image even more with the lighting. So you've got a nice deep location, you've got nice art direction, you've got color in the scene, you're adding richness to the scene, and then you come in and you start painting with the light. And the next thing you want to do is obviously have a nice composition. Now composition is subjective like the rest of these methods, but there's some obvious do's and don'ts. I mean, what would be the point of having nice lighting, a good location, and color in the background if we have the camera on the ground pointing up out the window and all we're seeing is sky? We want to compose the frame in in a way that highlights our subject to tell the story, but also lets those things in the background actually play, actually work to our advantage. You can compose your frame in a way that makes the stuff in the background help create a leading line to your subject, maybe help create converging lines so you can actually focus on your subject. Or maybe there's something in the background that helps tell the story that you want to highlight, and so you frame a little bit off to the side a little bit just to kind of show that off. Or it can be just like this. I'm right in the center of the frame and I just have some stuff going on in the background. It's not impertinent to the story, but it's back there and it's adding a richness and interest to the scene. The point is, you don't want to just hit record on wherever the camera landed when it fell off the truck, as they say. Find something that looks more interesting. Pick up that camera, walk around the room until something really catches your eye. Once you found that frame, you can start taking these other components and start building the frame inside of that. Get your art direction, get your lamp in the background, whatever's going to help you tell the story better and help make the image look better. Then you start adding those things to the scene. But it's important to remember that not just one of these methods will save your image. It will make maybe a good image, but it's not going to make a great image. In my opinion, you want to layer all these components together. So you can start by pointing in a direction that has depth in the location. Then you want to start adding color and set decoration to that location, adding those little elements to the frame. And then you bring your lighting and you start shaping the scene and gluing everything together, creating your nice full frame. Okay, so now that we've talked about prepping the components of creating a great image, let's try to apply that to creating a real shot. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to start presenting yourself online. I've actually been using Squarespace for the better part of a decade now, basically ever since I started doing film and video. I just started with one of their pre-existing templates to start my website, and then later down the road I started modifying the website more to my liking. But that's what's great about Squarespace. I didn't have to know how to make a website. I simply was able to use the tools that are built in to customize the website as I wanted. It's always been great as a cinematographer because it's really easy to update my work on the website. Once I complete a new project and it's up online, I can just swap that out really easily using the video embed options that are built into Squarespace. So if you're anything like me needing to show off your work online, well, you can just do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Okay, so if we're walking around my house to find a shot, my house is kind of set up where it's kind of deep, right? So we can come from this direction all the way around over here. That's going to be the deepest part of my house. Otherwise, we're shooting into white walls, like I talked about. Another white wall. White walls basically everywhere. And otherwise, we're shooting into a small room. But here is the deepest part. So I think this is where I'm going to set up my shot. So I've set my Blackmagic Pocket 6K up kind of high so it can get my face in the subject. You can see me kind of here in the screen. And then I'm going to be shooting back this way and using this kind of stuff here as the background and motivating all the light from the windows here. There's also this nice light streak on the table here, but look at all these things. We've got wood on the ground, that's a color. Wood from here, that's a color. Green from the plants there, color. Terracotta stuff over here. We've got books over here. All this can create color. Likewise, if we come back this direction, we've got flowers here. We've got some of this stuff over here on the refrigerator. This will all go out of focus and add interest to our frame. So if we walk up in the frame here, you can quickly tell by looking at the monitor here that it's a little dark. So lighting is definitely going to be the next thing that we're looking at here. So we'll get the aperture 120D. Probably have to bring in some other modifiers here, but let's see what we need here in a second. So I've set the 120D up. It's just bare bulb right now shooting at my face. Obviously that's probably gonna be too harsh. Let's actually look at it on the camera here. Let's roll this. Yeah, that's gonna be too harsh on the face for sure. So we're gonna wanna diffuse that to make the lighting a little bit more pleasant and more natural to the scene. So I brought in my usual shower curtain here to create a nice large soft source, taking that 120D that's pretty small and making it bigger, be much more pleasant on my skin. And I'm also gonna wear this blue sweater over a black sweater, just to add a little bit more color to the frame. A black sweater would probably look okay given that we have kind of white walls in here and we're kind of more in a monochrome space. But I think I'm gonna just go with the blue just to add that little bit more pop. And if you look closely here, you can see that the house is kind of coming this direction. And we have some lines coming off of this table here that's acting as leading lines to my face. What we don't want to do when we have all this stuff that we could have in the background is shoot right up against the white wall like this. Now if I did the same action and I just had pulled out my phone, does this look good? Probably not. Not compared to the shot that we're about to film. Alright, so that's my method to creating a great image for film and video. But what are some methods that you guys use to create a great image? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. That goes a long way on the channel. And if you love this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, until next time guys, I'm Spencer Sakurai. See ya.